Okay, so what's up there, YouTube? Okay, I want to address a couple things that I saw in a video from Tony Northrup yesterday. Posted a video saying we hate making negative camera reviews, and I really think he does hate making negative camera reviews. He doesn't like to bash any camera, but on the same side, the same thing. They did do it. I'm sorry, but some of his complaints for the Nikon Z6, and he brought this up in his video, some of his complaints are extremely petty, okay? And I'll give you a perfect example of this. He complained that the IBIS has some warp in it, but he picked a Canon EOS-R that doesn't even have IBIS. So, to me, it seems like the reason why he was looking for issues is because the camera that he decided on doesn't even have that feature, and everybody complains about it. The other thing, same thing with the spot on the sensor, the little dust on the sensor. Oh, it has dust on it. Doesn't have anything that protects the sensor. None other mirrorless camera. There's not a mirrorless camera made besides the one that he bought that has a thing that comes down in front of the sensor. And I've been shooting with mirrorless cameras since the GH1, and I've never gotten dust on the sensor. Never. And I've changed the lenses. I have a whole bunch of lenses. I change them all the time. I've never gotten dust on the sensor. He goes out one day, gets some dust on the sensor, leaves it on the sensor, continues taking pictures, doesn't look at the pictures apparently or something, doesn't do anything, and then comes back and goes, well, see, it doesn't have the curtain that closes down over the only camera that does that is the EOS-R. And then he said his review was factual. What I posted a link in his review, in his comment section, on that Nikon Z6 review, proving without a shadow of a doubt that the Nikon Z6 focuses better in video mode than the EOS-R by a mile. It's not even close. Even the people on the video, I'm going to leave a link in the comment below and look at the card up above. Here's a link to the EOS-R and the Z6 side by side with the same lenses, same, depth of field and everything set up, shooting a person walking back and forth, walking in front of the camera, turning around, popping their head up, all the stuff that you normally do. And you can clearly see that the EOS-R, with its dual pixel autofocus, is the best in the business, gets completely stomped by the Z6. It's not even close. It's not, we'll look at it, but it's not, I beg you, go look at the video. And I said, I beg to differ about the autofocus. That's the only thing I said. I thought that overall his Z6 review was pretty fair. He has a problem with the focus in low light on the thing, and the back focus, and a couple of things of it not getting the stuff. I haven't seen the white balance issue. I've been shooting with the camera for months now, since I got it in December, and I haven't, or whenever I got it, and I haven't seen, yeah, it was December, and I haven't seen this white balance issue that he's talking about. I don't know where he gets that from. I don't know, I haven't seen it in any of my shots. So maybe he had a faulty one or something like that. But if he was having a white balance issue, he has a right to complain about it. But let's be honest. The things he was picking out and trying to say was what made it not as good were the things that the EOS-R does. So he obviously is biased towards the camera that he purchased, the EOS-R. He feels like it's a better camera, and that's fine. I'm sure I'm biased towards the Nikon Z6 because that's the camera I bought. I'm not complaining about that. I'm saying it does happen. And he did obviously do it. Why did he continually pick on this sensor closing down and the spotted dust on the sensor? You notice he hardly ever said anything about the single card slot because the EOS-R has one card slot. He didn't make a big deal out of it like he did in the other videos when he was talking about them lacking card slots. As soon as he bought one of the cameras, then he stopped getting on the single card slot issue because the EOS-R, the camera that he bought, has one card slot. And it costs more than the Z6. I don't understand how anybody can buy this EOS-R over the Z6, but hey, maybe you like Canon. Maybe you got a bunch of Canon glass and you want to use it. That's your business. I'm not telling you what to buy or what not to buy. What I'm doing is dispelling negative myths and obviously biased review. It's a biased review. You can't say it's not. It is. When you're picking apart the one feature that the camera you bought has, and saying that, well, this thing's got dust and it got dust on the lens. I've been shooting with this camera and changing lenses on it since I got it, and I've never gotten a piece of dust on my sensor. And if I did, I'd get a little ball and go and blow the dust. It's not a huge deal. It's not a make or break thing. Matter of fact, it's not a make or break thing because up until this year, now the mirrorless camera's been out for years. Olympus came out with them years ago. Not until this year did a camera company release a camera where you take the lens off and the shutter curtain closes. And that happens to be the one that he bought. And then after he buys it, all of a sudden, it's a huge deal that the other cameras don't do it. Come on. You're just being petty. And I call him out on it. That's being petty. Everything, a lot of the other stuff, he probably has a legitimate gripe on some of the things that were wrong with the camera. No doubt. And does he want to do negative camera reviews? No. But I think he is biased because he did buy the other camera and he's talking about the things that he likes, that he dislikes on this camera because the other camera does those things. Well, I personally have never seen a camera that has better autofocus for shooting people's faces in a vlogging situation or even just shooting people's faces than this camera, the Z6. Even I think it was DP Review, the guys over the DP Review, Jordan and Chris, they even showed the EOS-R was having a hard time focusing. And they were like, we're surprised that it couldn't focus in video like the dual pixel autofocus was hunting and hitting the background and going back and forth and not tracking on their face. But right there in the video, they did the exact same issue that this guy in the video that I show you. I guess I'll link to both and show you both. Yeah, I don't beat them up because I think they're really good reviewers. I think they do a really good job. I think he goes through stuff and tests it and does all this kind of stuff very well. But I've had a lot of people on forums and other places say things like they got a little bit of rain in their hot shoe with the cover on it on their Sony camera and messed up their camera. It wouldn't shoot anymore. So a little bit of rain. Tony recently did one where he sprayed water all over the cameras, the Sony and I forget which other one it was. It might have been the Z6. He shot and froze them solid, and kept shooting water on freeze. It was a pretty cool video, and freezing them to see how they still worked, and they continued to work. So the Sony continued to work, and it wasn't a problem. There it is, freeze. Olympus EM1X torture test and review. And he went through and froze it, and the Sony lasted just like that one. It's possible. Maybe it's perfectly fine, but I've seen people complain that the Sonys failed when they got wet, just a little bit wet, and that's one of the reasons why they wanted to buy a more robust weather-sealed camera. So I don't know. I doubt it's a bias against Sony and for Olympus. It seems like a bias towards Sony, for Sony and against Olympus because which Olympus is, you should be biased against that camera. It's a total turd. It's not a turd. It's just not worth $3,000 for this mammoth body with a little bitty sensor, and it makes no sense. This camera shoots better video, and I'm shooting this right now on the Nikon Z6. So anyway, I just thought I'd come out here and talk about it. You guys let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you think it was a good review, but I think it still showed some bias, and I don't think anybody can help but show some bias, right? Like they even mentioned Jared Polin, reviewed the camera at the same time, but Jared's review was like an hour long because he went into a bunch of stuff that the other cameras already had. But that's because Jared likes Nikon. They like Nikon. So Jared's more of a positive person on Nikon, and he might be a little bit more negative towards other cameras. Everybody is. There's no completely unbiased reviewers out there. It's impossible, especially if you own a camera. If you spend hard-earned money on the camera, you're going to be a little bit more biased towards that camera. It's a known fact. You just are. I'm positive I'm more biased towards the Nikon cameras because I like Nikon cameras, and those are the cameras I buy, and I spend my hard-earned money on them. Does that make it? But I'm not going to give you a bunch of false information, and I'm not going to bash saying that Sony doesn't do this or Canon doesn't do that, or unless they really don't do it. Canon has no IBIS, no in-body image stabilization in their camera. That's the camera that they bought. And then they complained about the IBIS being having some warp or something, that we didn't have electronic VR on. Well, I've shot a whole bunch. You've watched my videos. You see me walking around with this Nikon, and I don't see any warping going on in the background, except for on the one that had the electronic VR on. So I don't know what he's talking about. But even if there was a little bit of it, hell, I can handhold this camera with a non-stabilized lens in full frame without cropping it at all, and the vibration reduction, the image stabilization in body works because it has it. The camera he bought doesn't even have it. So how could you even complain about something the camera you bought doesn't even have? You don't have it. That's like me complaining that that's like me complaining that the Sony has 2 card slots when the Nikon doesn't even have 2 slots. Oh, this other slot was slower. One of the slots is slower. Okay, but yours doesn't even have 2 slots. This camera does not have 2 slots. So I wouldn't be complaining about the one with 2 slots, one of them having a slower slot. This one doesn't even have a slot. But see, that's the kind of thing. Like if I jumped on Sony and said, well, they got one of their slots in their camera is too slow. It slows down to the slowest speed. So if you're using 2 card slots, it goes slower. And that's a real problem. So not having a slot at all is not a problem? Now it's not a problem because you bought a camera with 1 slot. See what I mean? But in general, they're good. They're funny. Their videos are very polished. They're very good quality videos. They give you a lot of really good and useful information. I've learned a lot of things from Tony Northrup, and I've learned a lot of different stuff from Tony and Chelsea. I think they do a fantastic job in general. But sometimes I think they get it wrong. And this is one of those times. I think they got a few things wrong. Not everything, but a few things I think they leaned a bias towards attacking something that's not as big of a deal, because it hasn't been a big deal for years and nobody cared until they bought a camera that has the shutter. You know what I mean? So anyway, let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Give this video a thumbs up, thumbs down, blah, blah, blah. Thought I'd let you know. Have a good day. Take it easy, YouTube.